Tell me about this hunter.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
I really appreciate you doing this. It's great to be speaking with you.
And thank you for your time.
No, and love the message before the movie yesterday. I just thought
that was literally me. Me in the final days here.
Well, it added to, like, I guess, the immersion of the filmmaking process for, I mean, someone who just sits on the sidelines and writes about it and watches it. I don't know. I thought it was a really cool bonus and just added to the experience. And
this is the first time I've not been able to show the whole movie. Normally, these conversations we'd be talking about a movie that you saw, and I know in this process with these movies it's a little different, but I did just want to let everyone know that we're working away. We actually signed off on our last visual effects shot last night. I'm in London right now doing some press for this, but we signed off on the last shot last night at about 9:00 at night. So the movie is now officially done, I can say.
Well, that has to feel great.
It does. It's been a short walk,
Yeah. Well, speaking of the effects, like that's like the effects and especially the stunt work and just the raw action of the thing were striking to me. Like it was just, I mean, I genuinely enjoyed the hell out of the footage that we saw. Because it is kind of such a distinct entry in the Marvel canon. I'm just curious, what is it about it that drew, a director with your background into Marvel?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple ways to answer that question, but at my core, I think I'm a genre filmmaker, weirdly. It's heightened, and maybe I look at the genres from a little different angle, certainly. But if you kind of go through the films that I love to watch, and I haven't stayed with one particular place. I think as a director, I keep wanting to challenge myself. And so, I have kids that are now 19 and 14 in the last 20 years. And then my first movie I ever saw in a movie theater was, Richard Donner's Superman. So these comic book movies have been a core element of my movie-going experience my entire life. I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. No one in my family was in the film industry or anything like that. So, E.T. and Superman and, those were the Star Wars, like those were the movies that I grew up on. And so I had been offered a couple of different versions of these things over the years for sure. But the first thing that drew me in was the story that Richard Wenk had come up with. It was not complete in any way at that time, but it was a great yarn, and then kind of did a deep dive into the canon, going all the way back to the first appearance of Kraven, and then following it all the way through, and as crazy as it sort of seemed, I was just talking to someone about the costumes and how, it's a challenge. There were a lot of challenges, but there was also, I think, the opportunity to sort of structure the film like a classic origin story, but it's not a hero's story, and it's not a classic superhero story. It is essentially this building of a villain and how that happens. And, the final piece of that in both for Aaron and I, was Kraven's Last Hunt, which, if this thing works and this is a success, that's where we always, I should say the film that we built and that we've structured here, that's where we would have this story end. And that's obviously a very tragic, sad, the journey getting there is a wild, crazy ride and has all the excitement and fun of Kraven and what he is in the comic books. but the character that we were trying to create is one that could realistically, if this film is a success, in years in the future, end with, you know, Last Hunt. And that as a storyteller fits right into my canon, you know, not to call my own films canon, but right in, it can sit on the shelf with my other films, very comfortably, if I succeeded. If I failed, it would have been a total freaking disaster. And I admitted that to myself up front. I hadn't been this scared, like starting a film, really going back to All Is Lost, where I was like, I may not have a movie at the end of this, right? It's like, what am I doing? I've been waiting my whole life to get the opportunity to make a movie, and this is what I decided to do with my second one. But that's exciting to me. And so this one, it was scary because there were a lot of bad versions of this movie, you know, but I think we somehow, I mean, I don't know. People got to see the whole film, but that tone that you're picking up on, right? Which I think, I guess you brought it up, the visual effects. What we've tried to do is have it be a Marvel film for sure, and by the time you get to the third act, it is. Sure. But the even the stunt work and things like that are meant to feel, I don't want to say invisible, but are meant to feel totally integrated into the world that you and I live in. They're of this world very specifically.
No, it's also, I mean, the tone, I guess, is that especially in the action that I saw, it's very reminiscent of, I mean, like Predator and like First Blood. Like, it's been forever since I saw. And I mean this as the highest.
Well, those are like core films of my childhood, not my childhood, but my, like, you know, teenage years. So you hit your sweet spot there.
Yeah, maybe childhood on my part. But no, and I mean that as like the absolute highest compliment. It's just been a long time since I saw a studio film of men killing each other in the woods, like, and beautifully filmed too. Like, really, like the action here was amazing. And
yeah, Ben Davis. So Eunice Hudhart is the second unit, you know, stunt coordinator director. Like, was my teammate, and she's an amazing woman. She actually was Angelina Jolie's stunt double for all those years. You know, Salt, all those films. But she actually has an amazing history, which she was. I think she's the only worldwide gladiator. Remember that show, like American Gladiator?
Yeah, Gladiators, totally. 100%.
You know, there was British Gladiator and Europe Gladiator and blah, blah, blah. She was a contestant who got invited to be an actual gladiator. She's a total badass. And so she got her stunt license, I think, to be a gladiator, and then got cast as Angelina in the 90s. So she has built this amazing career. And I think she's actually the first woman ever to be a second unit director on a Marvel film, which is really cool. And so Eunice, myself, Aaron, the rest of her team, I don't know the best way to say what we tried to do, and this is something I very specifically challenged them to come up with, was that what I had found, and I don't like to ever comment about other people's films because it's really hard to make a movie, and so, but gravity in a lot of these films, there was no longer a law of gravity. People were bouncing off shit. And I know my children and their friends watching these movies were starting to like laugh in the wrong places, right? And this is just me bringing my, you know, teenage son and his friends to movies. It was like, without gravity, like, I don't know. I guess if it's a movie about space, that's okay. But like, gravity affects us all. Even birds are affected by gravity, right? Almost more so than anyone else. And so what I challenged them was, I actually gave them like this chart that showed like how gravity affected certain, you know, a long,
okay.
You know, like imagine like an Olympic long jumper, and then imagine like me or you jumping, right? So me jumping, that arc is not very impressive, right? A long jumper's arc is really cool, right? And you're almost like, holy shit, right? And so we kind of took that gravity chart for all different things, mountain climbers, people that do, what is the thing where you're like in the circus, where you're like, jumping from rings to rings, and, all of these different sort of, crazy physical things that human beings are able to do, BMX jumpers when they jump off shit, and we just looked at the way gravity affected them and affected different animals, and then like started to limit ourselves, right? Where we were like, he can jump and do X, but he cannot do Y, right? Because it just isn't going to fit into our movie. And so, I think it's not exactly what I wanted, and it's not perfect because it's really, really hard to do this stuff, but it's pretty damn close. And I think what you're reacting to is that the stunts that you see, gravity always has its effect in the end. Gravity wins at the end of every stunt in this movie.
Yeah. No, I love that, because it's funny that you say that that the teenage boys are the judge of. I think teenage boys are much better judges of movies than they get credit for. Gravity is a thing, and
the stunts you just saw, like that's from the books too. If you go back to the books, what's fun is like Kraven's always like crashing into shit and falling through things, and he's the self-proclaimed, don't tell Aaron this, because like poor Aaron, is the character, but like Kraven's the self-proclaimed greatest hunter in the world. He's got limitations, and it's what makes his interactions with everybody else, I think really cool.
Well, he came off as sympathetic. And I know, I guess we're eking towards a, more villainous kind of thing, but in the footage I saw, I was definitely.
You're rooting for him. He's I think, that rule that I set for myself, which is by the final frame of our movie,
sure thing,
you had to believe that character could go eventually and live in a world where Kraven's last hunt is a real thing. But this part of the journey that you got to see pieces of, and that when you get to see the whole film, we're not there yet, right? So you're seeing those, and it's what I think makes the story hopefully somewhat human, is you're getting to see the meetings in the road where you can either go left or you can go right. And one leads to the, familial tragedy of Kraven's last hunt. And the other is a long life of success and more moderated happiness. And, what I've tried to do in all my films is make those moments of decision be the keys in the movie. And it's not normally like one in our lives, as I've found, or at least in the way I try and tell stories. It's really like you can make a bad decision in life and then completely reorient your life and correct yourself. I mean, Aaron and I used to joke about this when we were filming this movie, but like, I forget the actual fact, but like 70% of murders go unsolved, right? Which means there are murderers everywhere, right? But if you continue, I know, right? But the comforting fact is, once you've done that once, you probably realize that's not something you ever want to do again, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you don't get caught, presumably. And so, Kraven, if you know anything about the character or you've seen the trailer, clearly, in our origin story, you're going to get to see those decision moments where he has a path to take a different path and doesn't. And he thinks he's doing it for the right reasons. So he's still charming and he's all the things that I think the comic book character is. But in the end, he's sort of a vigilante who's trying to take justice into his own hands. And that doesn't normally end well.
Aaron's physicality is incredible. And I couldn't help myself but ask about, because the rumors have been so pervasive about Bond. He's incredible. And he's very clearly so much of it. How much of stunts did he do?
I mean, a lot. Anything that wouldn't. So, I mean, Aaron, his background is actually as a kid, he was a dancer, and so he has that classic dance training. Anyone who's seen any of his performances, even when he's not even doing stunts, he's got this. He can like control his face and move things in a way that like you or I probably can't. And so he has unbelievable body control. And so, certainly there were elements of this that just from a safety perspective, if he was hurt, it would ruin the whole rest of our schedule and the whole thing would fall apart. So I'm not going to sit here and say that there weren't an amazing team of stunt professionals doing some of this, but wherever possible, and almost as importantly, when you see the whole film, the way the character moves in life and in the lead ups to those big stunts that you got to see a lot of, there is this like animalistic element of this character where he believes, whether he is or not, he like believes that he has the soul of an animal in him. And Aaron, in the way that he physically was able to transform his body, obviously just from the the shape he got himself into, but also the stunts that they were doing. So he's doing a lot of that. And then if it's not him, it's almost always another human being. There's not a lot of digital, there's a lot of digital enhancement and removing safety equipment and things so that people weren't getting hurt while doing this. But most of our, and I don't want to give away the third act, there's certainly a lot of really captivating and amazing visual effects in the movie. But from a stunt perspective, most of those visual effects were used to sort of remove equipment and people that we were using to do it safely. But the actual performer that you're now seeing that's left in the movie, that was a good old human being. And I think it hopefully is what you're reacting to, where it feels a little bit more, like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. And by the end of it, hopefully I've convinced you, even though some really crazy shit starts happening, hopefully I've sort of slowly walked you into that you kind of believe the whole thing's happening. So we'll see. Come out on, what is it, December 13th. And I appreciate you coming and seeing that footage and helping to get the word out. And I hope everyone, especially your guys' audience that I know are real core, they take this stuff seriously, and we did as well. We don't take ourselves too seriously. I don't think the movie still knows what it is, but we took what we were doing, really seriously. And I hope, your audience gives the movie a chance because, I'm proud of what we put out there. And I think people, if they go in with an open mind, I think they'll have a fun night out.
Excellent. No, it really was unique and captivating. It was Marvel meets First Blood vibes. Genuinely, the
little Godfather mixed in there. So
yeah.
Which you'll see in the story. There's, Russell and everyone. It's super fun. So all right, man. Well, I can't wait to hear what you guys think of it when you see it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.